Ladies and gentlemen, the latest DLC characters for Street Fighter 6 Season 3 have been announced, and one of the characters is a returning fan favorite in Sagat. So what I'm hoping to do in this video is sort of show what Sagat will likely play like in Street Fighter 6. Of course, he might have some changes here and there, but I believe it's a given that Capcom's not going to necessarily completely change his gameplay style, as it's relatively solid as far as what he as a character is. Of course, there are people out there who have already played against Sagat or have played Sagat, knows what Sagat does, but for those of you out there who Street Fighter 6 is their first game, or they are interested in playing Street Fighter 6 now because of the new DLC characters, maybe even Sagat, then hopefully this video will give you a rough estimation on what to expect when he does drop. Of course, with a little disclaimer here, this is all just sort of my predictions. Do take it with a grain of salt. I am fairly confident, though, that some of it is going to be a given, while others are going to be out there. So without further ado, let's go into Street Fighter V so we can see what Sagat will likely play like. Alrighty then, we are now in Street Fighter V, and boy has it been a very long time since I played this game. I stopped around when Alex or Guile dropped, and I picked up briefly around COVID era, sometime when Seth got released, just to see all the new characters that I missed out on. But enough reminiscing, it is time to look at the king himself, standing there in all his glory. So the first thing is that we're going to look at what Sagat is as a character in general. So he is a zoning character that loves to harass his opponent with fireballs. Of course, the key to his fireball game is his tiger shots. We first have the high version here. So the high version in general, they are faster than the low tiger shot versions, all of them. The high tiger shots also have better recovery than the low tiger shots here. Of course, the high tiger shots can be ducked. Ryu here is able to perfectly duck under the high tiger shots. As far as the low tiger shots go, they, despite the fact being slower than the high tiger shots and having longer recovery, they do not miss the opponent when they're crouching. So you pretty much mix in between the high tiger shots and the low tiger shots here, and this essentially makes up a good portion of his zoning game, where he essentially harasses his opponent, throwing out these low tiger shots, high tiger shots, forcing the opponent to essentially play this sort of bullet hell type game where they have to duck, walk forward a bit, duck, walk forward a bit, and as they're doing this, they essentially might eat some chip damage as well as getting pushed back as well. As you saw, we just pushed Ryu all the way into the corner with a couple tiger shots. So as you see here, Ryu blocks it, and he's getting slowly pushed into the corner, and Sagat is winning the screen space. Now, this is unlikely to be the case in Street Fighter 6, since your opponent can parry, and so they will just stay in place. But the effectiveness of his zoning playstyle should still be intact. So another strong aspect of his fireball game is that Sagat essentially has like 8 different fireballs. Now, it's not a novel concept that you get different speeds of a fireball depending on the strength that you use. So, I mean, I'm sure with Ryu as an example, his light version of Hadouken is going to be slower than his fierce version of it. But what Sagat is that he has 3 additional projectiles with his low tiger shots, and of course 2 additional ones with his OD high tiger shot and his OD low tiger shot, meaning that there is potentially going to be 8 different types of fireballs with different speeds, and it's going to be very hard for your opponent to be able to get used to the timing. So what makes this fireball game even more devious is that in 6, if you want to deal with fireballs and be positive in your drive gauge, you pretty much have to perfect parry them. and unfortunately it's going to be pretty hard to do that, especially against Sagat, since he has all these different fireball speeds. And so you can just imagine trying to perfect parry all these varying speeds of Tiger Shot. You're eventually going to lose in the drive gauge resource war, and you effectively have to address this in some way or fashion besides just sitting there and trying to perfect parry. So it's not just having a good fireball that makes a good zoner, it is also the anti-air options available to them, and Sagat has some pretty decent options available. So the first one is going to be his DP, classic Tiger Uppercut anti-air. What else can you say? Nothing else new. The second, and these moves I believe are gonna stay intact, virtually unchanged when he comes into 6, is gonna be his standing heavy kick, toward standing heavy kick. So despite the fact that these are decent anti-air options, they're not the best available to you, and you're gonna be relying mainly on DP when you can. One is that they are not invul, unless if it's, I believe it's invul around the head and shoulders area, but they're not completely invincible like your DP. The second is that they are just slower than your DP. Now, that could all change in Street Fighter 6, but I highly doubt that Capcom would make his DP slower than these normals here. Just a special side note, in particular with his forward standing heavy kick, there is an incentive to try to use it as an anti-air, which is this here. You get a nice juggle out of it. With DP here, you can connect it with Tiger Knee if you want to, whatever you think is the best choice at that particular time. So, he has good fireballs. He has anti-air options. So far all we've seen is a pretty cut and dry zoning character. Does he have anything to differentiate himself from the typical sort of Guile archetype who throw projectiles and anti-airs you if you try to jump over them? And he does. So one of the first tools that he has is going to be his Tiger Knee. Now, Tiger Knee can be used in various ways. First off, the most obvious, well, that's a super, is the combo off of it. And of course, the pluses of comboing to it is that you get a lot more screen space, and you're at a pretty optimal range in which you can go ahead, start your fireball game again. So it's not just combos that Tiger Knees are used for and being able to push further into the corner for your opponent, but it's also the ability to close the gap against them and actually get some plus frames. So you can imagine a scenario, let's say you have your opponent in the corner already and they're not willing to contest against you in the fireball game. They are just content on blocking and just hoping that you just, I don't know, get bored and fall asleep. If you were to space your Tiger Knee well enough, then you should be able to get some plus frames. Now, of course, I highly doubt it's going to be close enough to where you can get a strike throw mix here, but you can certainly hit them with a button and hopefully they flinch or whatever. Maybe you can even go for a shimmy, who knows. But the fact is that you can get plus frames off of your knee while also closing the distance against your opponent. So if they are particularly playing passively and you're for sure can force them to just kind of sit there and take it, then Tiger Knee is also a good option. So are there any other unique aspects about Sagat? And there is one more that I can think of, and that of course is his Kara cancels. So to kind of give a brief description of what Kara cancels are, it's when you use a move and then immediately interrupt the startup animation of it into another move. So as an example here, we have forward medium kick, and we're going to be using it and canceling it immediately into his DP here. You can do this with other moves as well. You can do this with his tiger shots. You can also do this with his tiger knees. But Sagat's gonna be a major user of Kara cancels here. The primary use for it is the fact that you can just get extra range. So I have demonstrated what I believe Sagat will more than likely play like in Street Fighter 6. In this portion, I'm gonna be just talking about what I think would be nice to have in his Street Fighter 6 incarnation, but I'm not sure as to how feasible Capcom is going to add these moves. So the first one is going to be his OD Tiger Shot, or in this case his EX Tiger Shot in 5. So in 5 it has this sort of floating juggle property, and so you have enough time to combo into it. As an example, now I'm not sure as to whether or not they would allow Sagat to have this, just because of the fact that if he can light confirm into his EX Tiger shots and be able to get like a combo off of it, it really is I would say a very strong tool for him to be able to do that. Like Guile, his Fireball will just push the opponent away. He doesn't get anything off of it besides just screen space. Ryu, same thing. So giving him this sort of unique property, I think would allow him to differentiate himself amongst the other, Fireball characters, but I can completely understand it being very strong. Now, the other reason is that I think that it will allow for at least more skill expression when playing as Sagat, because when you are trying to confirm from your lights into his EX Tiger Shot, if you want to get the follow-up combo, you will have to utilize his Kara cancels. So as an example here, so I use a light EX DP there, and I wasn't able to get all of the hits, but if I were to utilize Kara canceling, I would get all of his hits. And so because of that, I just think that it's just really cool if you can see a Sagat player perfectly utilizing his Kara cancels to get the extra range and get the extra damage. I know many people are not a fan of Street Fighter 6 because every character kind of plays the same-ish, and so giving Sagat, an incentive to have Kara cancels for his combos being a necessity would give that little extra bit of sauce that would make him a much more fun character to watch and play. Okay, so the next one here, and this is something that is gonna be kind of interesting in that it's gonna make Sagat possibly a very samey character with all the other how would I say suspects of the low forward drive rush. So in 4 and 5, Sagat does have a special cancelable crouching medium kick, and looking at just at all the characters who historically had crouching medium kicks special cancelable, it might spell that Sagat might have a crouching medium kick drive rush, which is gonna be interesting, I suppose, is the nicest way to say possible. But the reason why I am having reservations as to whether or not he's gonna have something like this is that, one, looking at how the zoning characters are in Street Fighter 6, the main ones don't have a low forward drive rush. You can, I suppose, look at Dalsum. He technically has a low forward drive rush. It's down back medium kick, but even so, the more comparable comparisons that I would make to Sagat is JP and Guile, and both of them don't have low forward drive rushes. But it's still well within the realm of possibility where Sagat is able to low forward drive rush, and that's one of his quote-unquote unique aspects as a zoner in Street Fighter 6. dear God, I hope that's not the case. So on top of that, I believe that there will be some sort of new gimmick. I mean, they've had some kind of new gimmicks with almost every legacy character in Street Fighter so far. You know, Ryu with his Denjin Charge, Honda with his 100 hand slaps, Ken, whose V skill, which was the run in Street Fighter V, just turned into a special move. Same thing with Guile with his Sonic Blade, which was his V skill in Street Fighter V. So I'm gonna make 2 predictions here. One's gonna be probably the safer option that Capcom's gonna do. The other is a sort of conspiratorial, out there, and something that is potentially game ruining. So the first one and the most obvious, just give him a buff, right? A buff-like move similar to Honda, Ryu, Denjin Charge, 100 hand slaps, right? I mean, he has that already in the form of his V skill with his Angry Scar and with his Tiger Naomon, I believe it's called. And it would give him extra properties on his Tiger Uppercut, right? It might also just give him properties on both Tiger Uppercut and his Tiger Knee, who knows? Now, coming into the more out there wild idea that I think would at least grab some attention, not the best attention, but it will grab some, is going to be his V-Trigger 2. So the reason why I am a little interested in his V-Trigger 2 is the fact that Sagat has a guard break. And of course there is parry in the game, so you don't necessarily have to worry too much about the guard break, but it then starts to become much more worrisome when you're in burnout. And I think it would add an extra layer to Sagat's burnout game, besides the usual, okay, he'll more than likely just start throwing fireballs at you, maybe doing some sort of block string that would end in a plus on block Tiger Knee, and then loop it all over again. If we were to add this guard break aspect to Sagat, then it might add just a little bit more extra, how would I say, mental stack in the matchup. And so it really does enforce the opponent to really be on top of their drive meter usage and not try to burn out prematurely. Of course, this is not the best idea. I just want to throw something out there that would at least make Sagat a little bit more interesting at having a gimmick than just the typical, alright, he just gets an Angry Scar buff and, you know, his DP gets extra properties. What I want to do here is just kind of give a last minute sort of prediction on what I think his power level is going to be in Street Fighter 6. He will be a strong upper tier character. I don't know if he's going to be the best, but there's elements in Street Fighter 6 right now that really do favor Sagat. So zoning characters in general, just due to the fact that Street Fighter 6 is such a game that relies on you managing the drive meter efficiently. Otherwise, if you go into burnout, that's just such a bad time. And Sagat, you know, being able to enforce his game plan without really committing to any drive resources is going to be a strong plus. I mean, that's why JP is strong, that's why Guile is so strong. They just are meter efficient, and no matter what, they're going to end up being more positive in drive meter than their opponent. So that about wraps up what I believe Sagat will play like in Street Fighter 6. I know that there are many dogshit takes in there, as well as probably some information that I was not correct in, so I do apologize for that, but I do hope that the people out there who are just not familiar with Sagat are able to gather such information with this video. The only other thing that I will mention is Sagat will probably have the same problem that Guile is, which is one jump in and he might just lose the game. You might be playing optimally 90% of the time, but that 10% where your opponent gets a good jump in and then throw loops you in the corner, that just might be it. But besides that, his use of his Fireball game, not committing any drive resources and whittling away his opponents, should still make him a very good character. So, why don't you tell me what you think Sagat will have, what moves he might get in Street Fighter 6, how he will play. Possibly your take is much better than mine, and very likely is. But other than that, thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.